Hey, Dustin here, Smoking Eagles Rod Shop, back with another video for you guys. And today we're going to be working on my new, freshly rebuilt Buick 455. I've been trying to get this thing ready to go into Carmen Electra, the burnout monster. But I ran into some issues at the end of my last video with the oil pump, and today we are going to get that all fixed up. Let me show you what I got going on. Now I was priming the oil pump, and I didn't really like the way it felt, so I tore the bottom of the oil pump apart, and if you can see up in the housing there, it's all marred up on the side of the housing, and that dowel pin there's all beat up. It's not even round anymore, and I'm pretty sure that was allowing the two gears in there to kind of move around and eat away at this housing. I'm glad I caught it when I did. Before I put it in the car, that would have caused me all kinds of drama. Luckily, I have another timing chain cover, oil pump, everything off the old engine that was working just fine. So we're gonna pull that all off now that I have gaskets, put it on there. Now I do have a double roller timing chain on this, and it's my understanding that you have to alter the case a little bit. I've never done that. Guess we're gonna learn that together on the fly. So stick around, this is gonna be a lot of fun. Oh, and just so you know, we do have a membership program now, and we've got merch on our website. I'll have links in the description if you're interested in any of that stuff, but anyway, let's dig into this. So in order to get this timing cover off of here, we need to pull this bypass hose off. We need to pull all these pulleys off of here. Those are pretty simple. We need to pull the harmonic balancer off of here. And then we gotta pull this handful of bolts off of here, and we need to pull these front bolts off of the new oil pan here. And this whole timing cover, housing, assembly, whatever you wanna call it, will come off in one big piece with the fuel pump. So, funny thing, I just put that fuel pump on there too, and now I'm gonna have to pull it off and put it back on the timing cover that I pulled it off of. Side quest, gotta love it. So these bolts here are 1/2 inch. And they're not very big. Man, my furnace just keeps kicking on and on and on today. It is cold out. It was just like 50 the other day. Now it's like friggin' 18. There's guys around here posted. They're out in their shorts, cutting wood, everything else. Now today, my furnace kicks on every 5 seconds. Pulley off of there. Now this is a big old frickin' bolt. And I think the torque spec, if I remember correctly, is 200 foot-pounds minimum. It's absolutely insane. Let me get a socket and my impact on there and see if I can't get that busted loose. Gotcha. She's got a big old washer. These things are salty too. I got a couple of them laying around though. I've been collecting some parts. You know what I mean? Now we need to get a little tiny washer down in there and my puller on here so we can pull this harmonic balancer off of here, because oh, never mind, I guess it's just gonna come right off. That was cool. That like never happens. Okay, hey, we got the upgraded rubber seal in here, so that's actually really cool. So all we've got to do now, this is good, we need to pull this hose off of here, and then we can start busting these bolts out. That's how I like to do it. 2 different size hose clamps on the same hose. This also needs to come off of here. I also just put that on there. Okay, so now we need to take all these bolts out. We don't have to take the water pump off if you've never done one of these before, but we do have to take some of the water pump bolts out. These 2 big ones here go all the way through. This big one here goes through, but that's not part of the water pump, so I don't know why I even brought that up. But there's 2 here, 2 here. They go all the way through to the block. Those 4 water pump bolts have to come out. All the rest of them can stay in. Everything else is just on the cover and on the front of the oil pan itself. And I believe there's a couple different size bolts. No, the size difference in the bolts are for the water pump. So these are like 1/2 inch. These ones here these ones here. These are super long, so sometimes they want to break off on you. But these haven't been in there very long. Or it hasn't been run since they've been put in. So they seem to be coming loose pretty easy, which is good news for us. If you've seen some of my other videos, I've had to timing cover off the old engine like 4 times while I was in the car. So I've definitely been here before. This is not new territory for me. Man, it's cold in here. I'd turn the furnace up. What they've used on these things, but they are gross. We're definitely not gonna be doing that. Clean them all up. Now we've got a couple right down in here. There's one there, one there, one there, one there. There we go. I do have the engine rotated a little bit, so I'm going to square it up. Okay. Now we got to try and get that off of there. Better get a couple flat screwdrivers and some putty knives. I know the bottom gasket's good because I put her on there. There we go. When she goes, she's gonna go. There we go. Duh, I'm an idiot. Learn something every day. Not that I didn't know I was an idiot, but should have taken the fuel pump off. It's kind of stuck on the old cam there. So I'm gonna pull them 2 bolts. No big. Duh, should have thought of that. That's off of there. Now, that'll come right off. Actually, the inside of this doesn't look like it's been altered at all. Oh, so now that I got this off here, you can see it a lot better. It's got some wear down in here. And then it's got a little bit of wear right here, but nothing major. But over here on this side, it's really got some wear on it there. And it's the same side of this dowel pin that's all wore. So definitely something going on there, and this dowel pin is like stuck. So this is salvageable, not a bad timing cover, just needs worked on and fixed. And I already have another one that I can just slap on there, so might as well do that and be off to the races. Mess with this one at a later date. So here's our old one, here's the old one. Anyway, this is the one that I already had that came off of Carmen. And I'm just looking in here for any differences that just jump out at me between this one and this one. Because if there are any, we need to know if they are detrimental to the situation there. Everything here looks to be the same. They didn't alter this at all, which I assume with a double roller timing chain, this is where you would have to alter things, or maybe up in here somewhere. But I don't see anything changed anywhere. Nothing's been clearanced. All right, I got the gasket surfaces cleaned up on this. I even tossed it in the parts washer, rinsed all the oil, slime, and sludge off the outside, but we're not done yet. We've got to tear this pump all apart and clean it all out, because when that happened, this Wix filter was putting into work. Check that out. I'm pretty sure that half that piston is inside this filter. Maybe we'll cut it open sometime and see, but for a second, let's just take a walk down memory lane and remember what got us here.
It's all Buick power, let them hear it.
Man, that was epic. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up here. You can go check it out. But I need to get this all tore apart, cleaned up, and then I'll meet you guys back here and I'll show you how to put one of these pumps together. I got the timing cover all cleaned up. We're ready to assemble this thing so it can go back on the car. But I would like to go over this oil pump with you guys real quick in case you're not familiar with these Buick oil pumps, or if you haven't seen my other video on how to rebuild a Buick oil pump. I'm not gonna go in super into depth, but I'm gonna skim over everything as fast as I can, even though there's a lot going on here. It's probably gonna take us 5 or 6 minutes to go over all this stuff, but I'll see how much information I can pack in here. I'll also put a link up here in one of these two corners, I can never remember which one, to the video where I go over the entire setup on how to rebuild a Buick oil pump. If you want to go check those videos out, I'll also put a link in the description, because we've been here before. We've been here before. Now, this is the old housing, or not old housing, but the housing off of the engine, the new engine. And as you can see, it's in pretty good shape. It doesn't have a lot of wear down here on this wear surface. And down in here, it has some imperfections in the casting itself. This is the housing off of Carmen. And you can see it's got quite a bit of wear right here. And I've actually dremeled all these sharp edges off of everywhere where the oil pumps through. And I've removed all the imperfections from the inside of this casting just to try and help that oil flow as best as it can. Now, if you don't know how oil filters work, the oil actually pumps in to the outside, goes down the outside of the filter, and then goes back up through the center and out into your system. So with that being said, that means that the oil comes in here from the engine. So it's going to come into the pump this way. It's going to go through the pump. The pump's going to pump it through your filter, and then it's going to come back up and come out of here and go back into the engine. Now on a stock setup, let's say you're going to go get groceries the way GM intended, your gears are going to ride directly on this aluminum surface. Well, a steel gear on an aluminum surface, what's going to wear out? The aluminum, soft aluminum, not the steel gears. So that's why this has a tendency to wear like this, and they make these booster plates to stop that wear, because now you have steel on steel with your film of oil in between the two to try and slow down, stop, deter the wear on your pump. Now, this pump had quite a bit of wear down on the outside edges. I assume that most of that showed up when we had the old catastrophic failure in the burnout pit up at Indy. And here's those gears. You can see there's all kinds of trash kind of ground into them and around the edges of the gears. That's because they were eating what was left over of that piston. But, you know, it is what it is. If it wouldn't have been eating all that metal, it probably wouldn't have eaten out the side of this housing a little bit and scarred it all up. It wasn't super bad. I just took some 400 grit sandpaper and my finger, not a power tool or anything, went in there and just smoothed everything out. I didn't want to change any of these dimensions or anything because we need a super tight tolerance on these gears so that this pump actually pumps and it doesn't just cavitate or create an air pocket or lose oil pressure. things of that nature, which are all bad, bad, bad things, especially for us. With as hard as we're pushing this thing, we need as good and efficient oil pump as possible, I guess is the words I'm looking for there. So I also went in and deburred all of this stuff on my booster plate. I went down inside all of here and got all the casting marks or whatever off of it that I could, anywhere where the oil flows. Here's a brand new one that has been not deburred or anything like that, and it's got sharp edges. Like, this could cut you if you wanted it to, or you weren't careful. And I don't want my oil to get stuck or hung up at all. I want it to just flow nice and easy. Now, you've also got this little groove here. The idea behind that, there's one on this side as well, is when your gear is sitting on here, the oil's coming into your pump here and then leaving your pump. Or maybe the opposite way, whatever, doesn't matter. It allows oil to get in that little groove and get on the bottom side of that gear and on the pin that this rides on. Your main drive gear, it sits right here, and it's getting oil from here as well. And the idea is that instead of being metal on metal, it's sitting on that little cushion of oil. Now, when you put these in here, you got your gear in here like this. They want 1 to 3 thousandths of end play. What is the end play that they're talking about? They're talking about that gear should be able to go up and down 1 to 3 thousandths inside this cavity. That way they know you don't have metal on metal, and that gives you a little bit of space for oil to be on the top side and the bottom side of both of these gears to stop wear like that from happening, either down there in the top side of your pump or down here on the bottom side or on your wear plate if you're using this booster plate. With that being said, if you had 3 thousandths of end play, that gives you 1.5 thousandths of space above and below these gears. That's not a lot of space. If you know your fractions well and you're familiar with calipers, micrometers, fine measurements like that, you know that a hair on your head is between 3 and 4 thousandths. So that is not a lot of space, but it is very, very important. Now, the reason I tore this pump that was on the new engine apart is because it didn't have any play. There was no end play at all. If you buy a TA Performance rebuild kit, booster kit, blah, 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 you get all the gaskets and all the fun stuff like I've done. They give you these instructions. They kind of explain the whole thing in detail. Again, I go over all that in the other video that I mentioned earlier. Long story short, you want that 1 to 3 thousandths. What they want you to do is take a depth gauge and measure from this gear down to this housing, or from the housing down to the gear, up to the gear, whatever. You need to figure out this difference here. I don't have depth gauges on me currently, but we are not going to give up. We're going to do it anyway. I'm not going to go drive over and get them because I have access to them. We've used them before. We're going to make it happen with a set of calipers. I'm going to show you how I did this, and we'll go from there. So what I did is I took my gear, my drive gear, and I also took my idle gear, and I measured this distance here in multiple places all the way around them. After I deburred them, you want to take a little needle file and you want to deburr all these edges and the top and the bottom, because these steel burrs are not going to get worn off in your pump. They're going to eat the aluminum housing. So make sure you deburr everything so it's nice and smooth, feels great. I wrote that measurement down once I got my average height for all of it, and it was within 1 thou of itself. So these gears are very, very close to being the same. Then I needed to measure the depth of this pocket. Well, I could take my calipers. They aren't going to fit in here this direction because they're too long. So you have to measure this direction. Well, that's not very accurate because the edge of this is kind of worn and you're only measuring off the edge of here, and if your calipers are tilted a little bit, it could throw you off. So what I did is I took a couple pieces of 1/4 inch Momax, set them across this surface, and then I measured down to the bottom surface. And I did that in multiple places. I did it 5 or 6 different places, wrote all those numbers down, and they were all within 1 thou of each other. So I took the average, that was my number. So that gives me the depth of my pocket, and it also gives me the height of my gears. Now, TA Performance, if you're using a booster plate, they want you to add 4 thousandths to that measurement. If you're using the stock plate, I believe you add 2. Let me look here real quick. Yep, you add 2 thousandths to that. We're using a booster plate, so we added 4. My number was 1 thou, so that gives us 5 thousandths, and that tells us how thick of a gasket we need to use. Now, I've got a whole pile of gaskets because every time I order a gasket set or whatever, it comes with them. Every time you order an oil pump, it comes with some. And then TA Performance offers a pack of gaskets that has Mylars and a bunch of different thicknesses of gaskets, because this is very, very important to get right. If you just have a gasket and you just slap it on there and you're going to go get groceries, it may be fine, but you may only have 30 pounds of oil pressure or 10 pounds at idle. These Buicks are known for having super crappy oil pressure at idle, especially at idle. This booster plate is designed to help with that, but if you've got too much clearance and end play in your oil pump, that's not going to help you at all, because when this is upside down, let's think about this. So you flip this over, your oil pump is actually at an angle, but the weight of your gears and gravity itself is going to pull your gears down onto this wear plate. The only thing keeping your wear away is going to be that thin film of oil that comes through this little groove here and up through this hole. So if you've got 3 thousandths of play, let's say the maximum that is recommended, a large majority of that is going to be at the top, which is aluminum. That's why the top generally does not wear unless your pump is shimmed incorrectly. So let's say, best case scenario for your pump housing, you have more than 3 thousandths. Now you've got whatever that magic number is that you have beyond spec is going to be at the top side of this pump. When this is spinning, oil is going to bypass the pump itself and just sit up here and kind of not do anything. And that's going to drag your pressure down. It's also going to leak up through where this rides. So this shaft, that's again another reason why they have this groove here, because everything needs oil, and that's going to allow oil to get up into this area right down in there. Which is good, because obviously that needs lubricated because it's aluminum on steel, but too much and you're going to lose pressure. We don't want to lose pressure. So I've measured all that stuff. I came up with I need a 5 thousandths shim. I don't have a 5 thousandths shim. I have a 6 thousandths shim. So I went with 6 thousandths because a 5 thousandths shim is going to give us our 1 thou, which is the minimum clearance. Because we have a 6, that should give us 2, which is within acceptable range. That would be fine. Even if I only could do 4 thou, I would be happy with 4 thou. But if you could only do less than 1 thou, obviously that's going to create massive wear, catastrophic failure. That is not an option. You're going to have to buy a shim kit or get a different shim or something, or not shim, but gasket. The other thing, when you buy a booster plate, it comes with a booster plate gasket. Now, I don't have any of those. That is one thing that we are lacking. What it does is it goes around this hole, this hole, this hole, and then it has all your bolt holes. I have this one, which is an oil pump gasket. The thickness of this plate, or this gasket, doesn't really matter. All it's doing is sealing this booster plate to this surface here and allowing oil to come through these holes. So, with the actual booster plate gasket, this is not all open. This is all sealed off. This is all gasket in here. I don't have one. I'm not going to buy one specifically. I'm not going to make my own. I'm just going to use one of these thicker oil pump gaskets that I get with everything that I buy, slap it on there, and we'll see if it works. It should work just fine. It's going to seal everything. It's just going to allow a little bit of oil to kind of get in this area here, which I don't see how that's going to hurt anything. That's in the pump. It's like in here where none of this even matters because it's flipped like this. And then the booster plate goes on and recreates that surface. So again, the only thing that matters is that oil can get through this hole, and this hole, which it will be able to do right down through all those holes. So we're gonna bolt all this together, except. I got one more except, and then we'll move on. When I bolted this together the last time when we rebuilt this pump, I was torquing everything to spec. One of these bolt holes felt a little soft. And so when I was bolting this all together, doing all my measurements and fun stuff, it would not tighten to spec. It was gonna just strip the threads out. So instead of stripping the threads out, it happens to be one of the holes that is solid. It doesn't go all the way through. A lot of these pass all the way through. Like this one doesn't, but it could. You could drill that out if you had to on the back side. This one is a blind hole. This one is a blind hole. So I ordered a 1/4-20 helicoil set. It should be here any minute now, but it's not here yet. So as soon as it gets here, I'll helicoil this, and then I can assemble my oil pump. There are 2 long bolts and 4 short bolts in this oil pump housing. Now the long bolts go in the blind holes and the short bolts go in the open holes that have shorter amounts of threads. Makes good sense. It's almost like somebody put a short bolt in where a long bolt should have went and ripped those threads out. I'm not claiming credit for that. It's probably me, but I'll never admit to it. And it's not gonna happen to you guys because I gave you the hint. I did figure out the double roller timing chain interference issue. Let's talk about that, and I'll give you my conclusion, what I've come up with. Now I looked on the inside of that housing, didn't see anything in there that had been altered. Looking around, I came up with this. The fuel pump that was on this new engine has been ground on right on the side of the fuel pump arm. Now the fuel pump arm has this dog leg in it that gets it around the timing set. But with the double roller, it rubs. Even with their grinding, if I can get it in the right light, with guys cranking this thing over by hand, it was still rubbing, which means it needs more clearancing done to it. Now this pump is one of the really nice expensive pumps that they don't really make anymore. They're hard to find, and it has no side-to-side play in it, and it was still rubbing. Now my cheap $20 pump from O'Reilly's, look at all the play in that friggin' leg. They'll let it walk around on that camshaft. If that thing was rubbing, this thing's gonna rub for sure on this timing. So you can see where that's supposed to get around that dog leg's supposed to get around there and allow that to rub on the cam, but not on the timing set. I got a couple of options. I can try and grind or alter the arm on this fuel pump, keep the double roller, bolt it all together, run it, break it in, pull the fuel pump, look at the arm, see if I'm good, screw around with all that, and maybe get away with it. I could try and buy a more expensive, better fuel pump with less play in it. That may buy me some space. I could shove something down in here and try and open this up a little bit and kind of eat up that play that's in there and then grind the side of this down to buy me some play. That is an option to stay with the manual fuel pump. I could also put a block-off plate on it and convert Carmen to an electric fuel pump. I really don't like that option because Carmen is supposed to be old school and she's supposed to be simple. And I feel like adding an electric fuel pump, even a low-volume electric fuel pump, is just going to add another level of complexity to the simplicity of Carmen, the burnout car, right? I would have to run all the wiring. I'd have to wire it into my kill switch. Like, there's a lot that I would have to do for an electric fuel pump. And what does that gain me? It gains me a double roller timing gear. So the other option is to slap my old timing gear on there, which is a single roller, comp cams. It's for mild street builds, whatever, and run with it, because I know this is the pump that I ran on Carmen and had zero interference issues with the timing cover that we are working on in the other room. So I know that will work. The only thing I'm losing is I'm not getting to use this double roller timing set. That is the path that I've chosen to go down at this point. Maybe later in the future, I'll decide that I want to put a double roller on there because I'm going to swap this cam out. We're going to go to an electric fuel pump and a blower. Who knows what the future holds, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. I don't. You don't. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think the best option for me now is to just use that old timing set. It held up just fine. Now, the other executive decision that I took upon myself was I was gonna bolt that on there, and then I thought, you know what? Carmen was doing like 4,000 RPMs, and that freaking rod gave, motor blew up, and it stopped like that. Now, what did that do to that timing set? None of the teeth are beat up. It looks to be in good shape. Do you bolt it on a fresh motor and say, yeah, it's fine, and then find out that it's not fine because it's got a stress crack in it or a fracture or one of the teeth is weak or who knows what? Wasn't really a chance I wanted to take. So I went online, ordered a new timing set. It's like 70 bucks. Exact same timing set, same part number, same everything, so that I know I'll have no clearance issues of any kind. Oh, my phone just made a noise. Haha, our package is here. Healy coils are here. I'm gonna run up and grab that. We can get back on that oil pump. But I did figure that out. So if you're gonna build a 455 and you wanna put a double roller timing chain on there, I recommend avoiding the fuel pump situation altogether and just going to an electric fuel pump, if that's the route you wanna take. Or just buy like a really nice single roller timing chain and go on with life. I mean, it's fine. What a nightmare, guys. So I'm gonna be honest, I kind of screwed up that Healy coil. I never screwed one of those up before, but I got the bright idea that maybe I could stack two of them because that pocket's so deep, and then you know, have twice as much threads. But all I ended up doing was screwing myself, and I should have just screwed one in just below the surface, and I didn't do that. So basically, I've only got this bottom section of threads, but at least they're steel instead of aluminum like before. So when I put my bolt in there, it does torque down to spec and it grabs good. It's just I had to shorten the bolt up just a little bit, and it can only go in this hole now. And I'm only grabbing about 5 threads instead of like 8. But we're gonna make it happen. It will work. Just a little frustrated with myself, but that happens. So let's start putting this thing together. This is nice and clean. I always take some break-in oil or whatever lube you want and just lube everything up really good, because it's an oil pump and it needs oil in the pump. So that's what we're doing. It can get kind of messy. There's our spring there. This is just our pressure relief valve. Just slide right down in there. Keep on a trucking, little guy. There it is. Toss a little oil in there. Like so. That just allows the oil to bypass the pump. Screw this on here. And there's some crazy torque spec for this, but it's like a 1-inch socket, so as long as you snug it, it's good. Ta-da! Should just go get one size bigger socket, because again, I'm not over tightening that thing. Good enough. If it leaks, you can snug it a little more. You don't use any Permatex or anything on any of these. You're better off to just let her leak a little bit. Not that it's going to leak much, but a little bit of leak is better than blocking off anything. So I always squirt some oil in there, squirt some oil around in here where all your stuff's going. Coat your surface in here where all your gears ride. We're going to pack this with Vaseline, but it's nice to have a good coating of oil on everything. And the Vaseline just kind of helps it get primed. And once it's primed, it pumps that Vaseline down into the pan. And it kind of just dissolves, turns into oil. Into your oil or whatever. Put my dowel pin in here. Need to put our top gear in. Oh, wrong gears, those are the old ones. That would have been epic fail. I like to spin these babies while I put them in there. Remember, I slid a little oil in there. Try not to drop it like that. But it happens. What ifs? These are usually marked. This one has a T on the top and this one has a T on it. So that's telling you which side's which. Put a dab of oil down inside here. Okay, so now we can spin this. Toss a little bit of oil on it. Oil on everything. Now we need to pack this full of Vaseline. Keep wiping this off, but it's irrelevant. I like to use a putty knife. Once you get this together like this, and you can just pour down in there. Now you might be thinking, hey, Dustin, how do you know the end play was within 1 to 3,000? I don't. Normally you'd put an indicator on there, but I bolted it all together. I felt a little bit of play, turned it, everything felt good. No binding, no issues, and we're living with it. You watch my other video, I use an indicator and all that stuff, and we figure that all out. So if you want to do it the right way, we're just building a race car now. Feeling a little lucky. Even though nothing about this has been lucky. Ran into like 47 roadblocks on this oil pump in the front of this motor. But anyway, we'll get her figured out. Good to go. Our gasket is going to be this little thin one. Now I need to put this on here like so. This on here like so. And this on here like so. Oops, except I flipped it over and got oil all over it. So what I need to do is set this baby on here first. Set this baby on here next. Make sure all our holes line up. Slap this on here as quick as we can because we're gonna have oil leaking. Right? Yep. 1, 2, 3. Action. Oh, and our gasket moved. That makes sense. It says between 5 and 8 foot-pounds, so I got this baby set at 7. There's one. There's one. There's one. we go, guys. Oil pump's ready. This thing can be slapped on the car. All right, guys, so we got our oil pump and our timing chain housing complete. My timing chain and gears showed up. Jason showed up to help out. And hopefully we can get this bolted onto that, get the cover back on that, and then we can take that, lift it up, put it in that, and we'll be rolling down the street. But to finish this video up, all we really need to do is get that timing chain and gears off of there, get the new one on it. We're gonna torque it down to 22 foot-pounds. We're gonna get that timing cover on there and the new fuel pump, and that will avoid all the drama and get us right back where we should have been. All right, guys, so we got the timing chain on there. One piece of advice I have for you is I've got this engine assembly lube. I always put some on the chain and on the gears and just kind of rotate it around a couple times, walking around itself, so everything's lubed up really good, because most of this stuff up here, it relies on a little bit of oil out of that front cam gear and whatever's on this little splasher to throw oil up there and lubricate the timing chain and the distributor gear, the oil pump, the fuel pump, shaft, like all that stuff. And yeah, so you definitely want to make sure that stuff's lubed up really good, at least for first startup. So got that all lubed up. I'm gonna wipe this surface off really good, get our gaskets on there. Those are 22 foot-pounds, and then the actual timing cover is 29. The real big thing you want to focus on is making sure you get a little bit of Permatex around these water jackets, because they travel through the timing cover and into the water pump. And the last thing you want is water in your oil, because they don't mix. Okay, so I got all my bolts cleaned up, got my gaskets here. You got 2 gaskets because the oil pan gasket's 1 piece. I always cut my own, but this kit that I ordered because I was short that gasket came with one. So I'm gonna use it. I traced it here so I have a template if I need to make more, because let's be honest, I'm gonna need to make more at some point. But anyway, there's these cool little pins on the fronts of these blocks. Boom, boom, and that'll locate that big old gasket there. Now, you don't have to use any Permatex, but I recommend taking just a little bit and just smearing it on there. You want to be really careful around your oil intake and outlet ports here, because that's where the Permatex guy will really get you. Ask me how I know, and if you've been around a while, you know how I know. But anyway, enough about him. Just a light little coat around there. It just helps hold the gasket in place when you tighten everything down and gives it a good seal, especially on these old cast aluminum housings where you have these imperfections where it's real pitted and stuff. I've seen guys that have actually had to buy whole new housings because they get so bad. But that Permatex will just kind of help fill in those little bits there. So what I'll do is I'll put it on this side of the gasket. I'll go toss her on our dowel pins. I'll put a little bit on the other side of the gasket, and then we'll slap this baby on there. You really want to make sure on this bottom gasket, it goes right down here on the bottom lip of this baby. And you want to make sure you get some Permatex down in this little crack, because that's where they like to leak out the side. Up here, not so much. You can kind of get away with no Permatex up in here if you really want to, but I recommend it around your water jackets, because it's got to go through that timing cover into your water pump and back. And again, milkshakes, not good. Unless you get them from Wendy's. Wendy's has a good milkshake. So, as is typical, the bottom front 4 oil pan bolts were kind of a pain in our ass. We hunted down some longer ones, so at least we get full thread engagement, because these things, the threads are beat up, guys. They are beat up. And one of the holes is blind up in there, which is sketchy too. But the bolts that you get from the factory that they use, they don't even have thread all the way to the end of them, because they need them as a pilot. But we needed those threads because they were still new, and all the rest of them were there-ish. Yep, So we got them all down. Is it torqued to spec? Yeah, maybe, probably not, but it is nice and snug and it's leaking juice out the front there. The old seal is looking good, and I think we're ready. Bolt the rest of this crap together, and if that leaks, I just won't tell you, and then everybody will be happy. So, harmonic balancer, pulleys, prime the oil pump. All right, I got all the pulleys on here, harmonic balancer, fuel pump, all that good stuff. It's time to prime this pump and make sure we've got pressure. We should be good to go. I'll move you guys over here. There we go. Oh, and the battery died on my drill right as we were starting to pull pressure. Always something. All right, let's try this again. £40. That feels a lot better than it did before. Okay, got the valve covers off of here. We'll prime this and make sure we're getting oil everywhere again. There's oil. There's oil. Oh yeah, you got some oil coming over there too. There's some. There's some. I'm missing one over here. And there it is. And we did it, guys. We got this oil pump on here. We got the engine primed and ready to go in, Carmen. I can't wait to make this happen. Corey just pulled up, so I think we're gonna start talking about when we're gonna be shoehorning this thing into the old Carmen Electra there. Now, a few things of advice I have for you. When you're priming your pump, you definitely don't want to push down on it. That puts force on the end of your gears, and it makes it ride right on that wear plate. Remember, you want that cushion of oil in there, so hold your drill engaged, but don't put weight on it down. It's going to be taking force this direction. It's going to prime your pump. You're going to be happy with it, but keep that in mind. Also, all those aluminum threads, just be easy on them. Go through them with the tap if you have to. Chase those threads. If you run into setbacks like we did with the fuel pump trying to rub the double roller timing chain and blah, 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 don't get frustrated, guys. Just take your time, take a deep breath, woo-saw it out, and tackle those challenges, because I learn something every time. I'm no professional, okay? But we're learning together, and that is the best part. I appreciate all you guys coming around, hanging out in the shop with me here. I'm gonna post some other videos around my melon here, things we're doing in the shop. Go check those out. Don't forget I got links in the description of another video doing the oil pump stuff that's a little more in-depth, and it shows you how to do it on the car if you're lucky enough to have your engine in your car. I gotta get there. I gotta get there. Anyway, till next time, guys, keep on wrenching. Peace.
All good. See if I can swing it. Like, peace.